Hi there, I'm a historian. If you're having trouble sleeping tonight, I think my story might just help you drift off. For now, all you need to do is close your eyes. And if you have headphones nearby, go ahead and put them on. Let my voice and the sound of rain carry you gently into sleep. Now then, let's begin. The night in Edo never stays still for long. Long before the sun even dares to rise, the city is already exhaling softly, like a giant wooden dragon stretching beneath a quilt of mist. I awaken not to an alarm or a rooster, but to the slow rhythm of wooden clappers echoing through the alleyway outside a night watchman's final rounds, signaling the end of darkness. His footsteps fade into the distance as my eyes adjust to the faint glow filtering through the thin shoji screens that line our home. It's still cold on the tatami. I pull my thin cotton yukata tighter around me and sit up slowly, trying not to wake my wife and our 2 children, who are still curled up under a shared blanket, their breaths forming tiny clouds in the morning air. Our house is no more than a narrow rectangle of wood paper, and hope perhaps 15 feet wide, stretching backward into a tiny kitchen. It sits stacked between others, like it walls no thicker than whispers. If someone coughs 2 houses over, we all hear it. The floors creak softly beneath my feet as I step onto them, making my way quietly to the back, where I light a small flame to boil water. There's no real privacy here, but we've long since learned to live in harmony with the sounds of others, the neighbor's baby crying, the old man next door singing shakuhachi before dawn, the clatter of geta sandals on the dirt path outside. These sounds are not interruptions. They're the city breathing. Outside, Edo still rests under a blue-gray blanket of pre-dawn light. The Sumida River not far from here moves silently thick with fog and the scent of fish markets yet to come alive. Our neighborhood lies in the northeast part of the city, one of the dozens of working-class districts sandwiched between merchant rows and samurai compounds. Life here is tightly woven. Every household belongs to a gonengumi, a 5-family unit responsible for one another's behavior taxes and even crimes. If one of us slips, we all fall. That's how the shogunate keeps us in line. Not with whips, but with shame and community pressure. I step outside into the narrow lane just as the first cries of tofuya float down the street. The tofu seller pushes his cart past his call, echoing like a ghost into the dawn. He nods at me, and I nod back. We don't need to speak. We've nodded to each other every morning for the last 8 years. Across the way, the vegetable woman lifts her shutters and begins arranging daikon and burdock root with the gentle care of a priest laying down relics. Everything about the city moves with grace, even when it's gritty. That's what outsiders never understand. Edo is chaos in harmony discipline, wrapped in dirt. As I walk toward the public well bucket swinging from my shoulder pole, I pass other men doing the same. None of us say much. Words feel too heavy in this quiet hour. We nod. We bow slightly. That is enough. The well is cold, the water colder. I rinse my face with a splash that shocks me into full consciousness. Beside me, a boy no older than 12 tries to lift a full bucket, failing then trying again. I help him without a word. He bows deeply. I bow back. That is how things are done here. The shogun may rule from his fortress across the river, but it's respect, not law, that truly governs these streets. By the time I return home, the light has turned golden. My wife is awake now, gently stirring rice into the iron pot over the tiny fire. The aroma of miso fills the room, earthy, warm, familiar. She hands me a small bowl and says nothing, but the way her hands linger says everything. Our children rub their eyes' mouths already open with questions, laughter, and hunger. The house feels warmer now, not because of the fire, but because of them. Outside, the city is shifting gears. Street vendors bang pots. The first palanquins rumble by. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks. And then, like clockwork, the great temple bell rings. One long, deep chime. Edo is officially awake. As I prepare my tools and roll up the mat I slept on, I glance out the window and see the city stretching beyond our little street rooftops. Upon rooftops, chimneys puffing smoke people beginning to flow like ink through a woodblock print. It's easy to feel small here. But small isn't the same as powerless. In Edo, everyone has a role, even those of us whose names will never be recorded. We rise, we work, we bow, we survive. And in doing so, we keep this great wooden city alive. Today will be like yesterday. Tomorrow will be the same. And somehow, that's enough. The streets of Edo unfold like a living tapestry, woven with the footsteps of thousands, stitched together by the routines of merchants, laborers, monks, and samurai alike. After I kiss my daughter on the forehead and slip on my worn straw sandals, I step out into the narrow lane behind our home. It opens gradually into a broader street lined with wooden storefronts and paper lanterns that still flicker faintly in the morning light. The smells hit you first. Boiled soywood smoke, fresh-cut scallions, and the faint sharpness of vinegar. The scent of the city is always ahead of you, always telling its story before your eyes even open fully. I adjust the small toolbox on my back, padded with rags, and begin my walk south toward the workshop quarter. I'm a carpenter by trade, more a fixer than a builder. My father made temple roofs, but the world has changed. Today, most of my work comes from patching up broken railings, repairing shoji screens punctured by a careless elbow, or tightening the legs on stools wobbling under the weight of too much sake. It's not glamorous work, but it feeds my family and earns nods from neighbors. That's enough. As I walk, I pass others on their own morning routines. A woman crouches at her storefront, scrubbing the stone steps with such intensity you'd think the emperor himself was due to visit. Next door, a cloth dyer stretches indigo-drenched fabric across a bamboo frame, the blue so deep it looks like it was stolen from the sea. On the corner, a bald monk rings a small bell, his begging bowl held out gently, not demanding, not pitiful, just present. Some offer him rice or coins, others only a bow. There's an unspoken choreography here. Merchants shout out deals. Children dash barefoot between stalls. Men haul barrels on their backs with the precision of ants moving sugar. Every sound has its place like an orchestra without a conductor. And through it all, you learn to move with care, never too fast, never too loud. Edo respects those who blend, not those who boast. A hush ripples down the street. It's subtle, but unmistakable. Heads lower. Conversations dip. I know what it means before I even see them, samurai. Two of them pass their daisho blades at their sides, hands loose, but always near the hilt. Their hair is tightly top-knotted, their robes immaculate. They walk as if the street was built only for them, and in many ways it was. No one speaks. No one makes eye contact. It's not fear exactly. It's etiquette, and a touch of survival. I step aside and bow not too low, just enough to show respect. They glide past like wind over still water, not looking left or right. I wonder sometimes what they feel beneath those robes. Power pressure emptiness. One of them, younger, turns slightly toward a stall selling rice cakes, then back again. A crack in the armor. A reminder that they're men, not statues. Once they're gone, the street exhales again. Noise returns. Laughter even. I overhear a fish vendor cracking a joke about the older samurai's stiff walk, and the vendor next to him chuckling through a mouthful of pickled radish. We laugh because we must, Life in Edo isn't free, but it's ours, and moments like this are a form of quiet rebellion. Further down, I pass the local bathhouse. Sento. Steam curls out from the high wooden roof, and the smell of cedar and soap tickles the nose. A few men are already lining up towels slung over shoulders. Bathing is more than cleanliness. It's ritual, it's community, it's status. We might live in tight, humble homes, but we wash with the thoroughness of nobles. Clean body, clean heart. That's what the elders say. At the edge of the marketplace, I stop at a stall run by a woman named Tama. She sells tools, cloth ink odds, and ends most tradesmen like me can't go without. She has the kind of memory that could shame a ledger. "You still owe me for the brush handle," she says, without looking up. I nod and set down a few coins. She slides me a small bottle of lacquer without a word. Trust here is a currency as real as silver. Around midday, the street buzzes louder. The crowds thicken. Food carts begin to open sweet potato cakes, grilled eel onigiri, wrapped in crisp seaweed. I buy a small rice ball from a vendor who's worked this corner since I was a boy. He hands it over like it's sacred, wrapped in a strip of waxy paper. I thank him with a bow. He responds with a wink. Children run past me, laughing, one with a carved spinning top bouncing across the stones. A delivery man stumbles by, carrying sake jars the size of his torso. Two old men play Go under the eaves of a shrine, arguing about rules they've both already forgotten. The shrine cat sits nearby, one eye closed, pretending not to listen. And then the drums sound. It's not alarm. It's the city's heartbeat. At intervals throughout the day, these drums echo across Edo from castle towers, temples, checkpoints, reminding us all of time, of order, of rhythm. Even time belongs to the Tokugawa shogunate, but here on the streets, we borrow it as our own. I head to my first job of the day, a merchant's townhouse in need of a new door frame. It's not far. On my way, I pass under the shade of ginkgo trees, their golden leaves fluttering like coins in the breeze. I pause a moment, not for prayer, but for breath. There's beauty even in the mundane here, if you know where to look. And then I keep walking. Because in Edo, the city never stops. And neither can we. The house I'm headed to today belongs to the Saito family, wealthy merchants, whose storehouse of silks and rice sits just off the main road. They're not samurai, of course, but in a city like Edo, money often whispers louder than swords. Their home is built in the new style, large clean lines, clay tile roof, white plaster walls accented with dark wood, and a store frontage facing the street. It isn't ostentatious, not in the way a Kyoto noble's villa might be, but it radiates a quiet authority. Wealth here is displayed with restraint. Too much would draw the shogun's suspicion. Subtlety is a survival tactic. I bow lightly at the entrance, where a servant opens the gate before I can knock. He recognizes me. I've done work here before. Without words, he gestures me to remove my sandals and step onto the wooden engawa, the veranda that runs along the edge of the house. The boards are spotless and slightly warm from the sun. Inside the house smells of incense and camellia oil, a pleasant contrast to the street's fried air. I follow the servant down a long corridor, passing sliding paper doors etched with brushwork cranes, waves pine trees, delicate but precise. The silence in this house is profound. You hear everything. The soft rustle of a kimono hem, the quiet clink of porcelain behind closed doors, the faint tapping of someone writing with a bamboo brush. It's the kind of silence that commands respect. We reach the repair site. A door frame leading into the family's reception room has warped from the humidity. It creaks slightly when opened, and no longer fits flush against the wall. I set down my tools and examine the frame, running my fingers along the edge. It's a minor job, but in a house like this, precision matters. A guest who notices a crooked panel might question the owner's taste, and reputation is currency here. I begin the work in silence. The house functions like a finely tuned machine. From somewhere in the back, I hear a young girl practicing shamisen scales. In another room, a servant chants softly as she sweeps the tatami. Occasionally, I catch the scent of brewing tea roasted barley, perhaps drifting past like a ghost. I file the wood, carefully listening to its grain, measuring the frame with a practiced eye. I was taught that a good craftsman leaves no trace behind his work, should seem like it was always part of the house. As I work, the merchant's wife appears. She glides into the hallway with such quiet elegance, I barely notice her until she speaks. Her voice is low and formal, inquiring politely if I'll need water or tea. I bow, thanking her, and decline. She bows in return and disappears as silently as she arrived. It's not unusual for the woman of the house to check on a craftsman, especially in a family concerned with decorum. I've seen wives who speak loudly, boast about their husband's successes, or bark orders at servants. But not here. Here, even the wealth wears a mask. When I finish, I test the door's movement. Smooth, quiet, invisible. That's what they want. I pack my tools, carefully wrap the worn cloth over the handles, and stand. The servant returns bows and hands me a small envelope. My payment folded neatly sealed with red string. No coins exchanged in front of others. Just an envelope. I bow again lower this time and back away a few steps before turning. Outside, the sun is higher. The shadows are shorter. The world feels louder again. I walk through the merchant district past others, like the Saito's tea dealers, rice wholesalers, cloth merchants. Some sweep their storefronts. Others bark orders at apprentices carrying stacked crates of goods. The richer ones wear subdued browns and grays colors of modesty, meant to show loyalty to the social order. Flashier colors are for kabuki actors and courtesans. Still, their homes boast tiled roofs and large signs with carefully brushed kanji. They're not samurai, but they walk with a kind of quiet confidence, as if they know power is shifting in the world. A man selling ink blocks calls to me. "For your brush, craftsman," he says with a grin. I wave him off with a laugh. He knows I rarely write. My hands work better with wood than with paper. Still, his voice follows me down the street, another thread in the endless fabric of Edo. I pass by a shrine tucked between two shops. It's small, maybe no bigger than a closet, but inside sits a tiny statue of Inari, god of prosperity. Someone's left 2 fresh radishes and a cup of sake. I stop and bow, not because I'm particularly devout, but because everyone does. And because luck in a city like this is worth every bow. Further ahead, a rickshaw clatters past its passenger shaded by a wide straw hat. A pair of children dart across the road, one waving a paper kite. A group of men in matching jackets march by firemen, probably their embroidered backs proudly displaying their team's crest. Even the protectors here have their own clans, their own hierarchy. Edo is a city of endless layers, every class, every craft, every corner with its own invisible rules. I stop for a moment beneath a tall lantern post and look up. The sun is nearly overhead. I've finished my first job. Another waits across the district, but I allow myself a few minutes to simply watch people bartering, shouting, laughing, bowing. A dog sleeps beside a bundle of wood. A woman hangs indigo cloth to dry in a courtyard where children play. It's not peace, not really, but it's balance. And in Edo, that's everything. The streets are brighter now, and the midday sun throws long slashes of light between the narrow alleys of Edo, gilding the rooftops and casting crisp shadows against clay walls. I cross into a poorer district, not slums, just tighter quarters, Hungrier eyes, more patched clothing, and children with permanent dirt smudged on their cheeks. These are my people. Not merchants, not samurai, not monks, just men and women who work until their backs bend and their hands stiffen with callus. I feel myself exhale here, like I've unknotted a tight cord in my chest. There's no need for perfect bows, no need to whisper. Here, people laugh with their teeth out and their sleeves rolled up. A small food stall sits near the corner of a tea shop, its simple banner fluttering gently. It's run by an old woman everyone calls Oba. Her voice is rough from age and tobacco, but her eyes are still sharp, and her miso soup could bring a samurai to tears. I sit on a low wooden stool and nod. I don't have to speak, she knows my face. Within moments, a small tray appears, a bowl of miso soup filled with tofu and chopped scallions, a scoop of rice, a pickled plum resting like a ruby, and a side of grilled mackerel. The fish smells perfect, just a hint of char, the skin glistening. I let out a sigh, and Oba chuckles. "Looks like you earned this one today," she says. I smile and bow slightly. "Every day," I answer. Beside me, two laborers are eating with exaggerated motions, arguing over whether the sumo match last week was rigged. One insists the rikishi threw the bout for coin. The other slams his bowl down, swearing on his ancestor's grave that the man simply lost fair and square. They laugh between mouthfuls, teasing and debating like brothers who've had this same argument a dozen times before. Further down the street, a group of young apprentices eat together in a circle, their laughter loud, almost reckless. They're mostly teenagers. Some will become carpenters, others dyers. Some might fall into crime or be conscripted if war ever stirs again. But today, they eat rice with salted fish and laugh about girls. Their voices rise into the sky like birds taking flight. I eat slowly, savoring each bite. Food is simple here, but respected. Nothing is wasted. The rice was likely grown in a paddled field a few provinces over, brought in on barges down the Sumida, dried and stored with care. The plum sour and sharp clears the salt from my tongue. The miso, rich and deep, sticks to my ribs. I feel human again. After I finish, I pay Oba and thank her. She waves me off with a flick of her wrist. "Come back before the snow," she says, then turns to shout at a boy trying to steal a rice ball from her counter. He flinches, then runs. She doesn't chase. She just mutters about little foxes with empty stomachs. I walk on past shops and homes. A man plays shamisen near a bridge. His voice thin but emotional, the strings humming like wind through pine needles. A woman paints paper fans with careful brush strokes beside her door. I see an elderly couple feeding crows. Children chase each other, banging wooden swords together and shouting about samurai honor. A peddler yells, "Kintsuba fresh, kintsuba," selling sweet bean cakes from a cart that smells like heaven. Life hums in every crack of the street. As I turn a corner near the Kanda River, I pause at a public notice board. Pinned to the wood are fresh proclamations, rules from the shogunate, reminders about fire safety, grain rations, new taxes, curfews. One sheet displays the image of a man, an outlaw, perhaps. A sketch of his face, a reward beneath. A reminder that not everyone in Edo plays by the rules. I glance around. No one pays the board any mind. Everyone already knows the rules. We live under them, like we live under the sky. Just past the board, I stop at a small shrine tucked between two buildings. I bow once, then twice, clapping softly, offering a moment of thanks, not for fortune or favor, just for the quiet moment itself. A woman next to me lights a stick of incense. We do not speak. The smoke curls upward and the city continues around us. There's a rhythm here in the middle of the day, a kind of collective pause. Not silence, but a lull. The street grows less frantic. Voices drop. It's as if the whole city exhales at once. The carts still creak. The sandals still scrape the stone, but with less urgency. Even Edo needs to breathe. As I cross back into the working blocks, the sun beginning its slow descent westward, I pass a boy practicing calligraphy in the dirt, with a stick writing the kanji for dream, over and over, then erasing it with his foot. His mother watches from a doorway, folding laundry, her eyes drifting between the boy and the street. I wonder if she had dreams once, if her parents did too. I wonder if they still do. I don't have time to think about it for long. Another job waits a broken beam in a tea house that needs fixing before evening customers arrive. I roll my shoulders and keep walking. There's work to do. There's always work to do. In Edo, the streets never sleep. They just change their rhythm. And if you listen closely, if you walk long enough, you'll begin to understand its song. By mid-afternoon, the golden light of Edo begins to deepen into something richer, more amber than yellow, softer, but somehow sharper at the edges. The streets warm to the idea of evening, but there is still business to be done, and I find myself standing outside a modest but popular tea house tucked between a bathhouse and a calligrapher's shop. The sign reads, Kawa no Kumo Cloud. Over the river, painted in graceful looping brush strokes. It's the kind of place that's small enough to miss if you're distracted, but everyone in the neighborhood knows it. A meeting spot. A gossip well. A place where steam and tension rise together in porcelain cups. The front steps creak as I climb them, tools slung over my shoulder. The owner, a round-faced man named Hirota, greets me with a curt nod. "You came faster than expected," he says, pushing aside a Norin curtain with a red camellia printed on it. I nod back and slip off my sandals, bowing politely before entering. The damage is minor. A support beam under the floor in the back room is starting to give, likely softened by years of moisture and tea spills. Still, if it's not fixed, the whole corner of the room could collapse. Hirota leads me in passing patrons, seated in silence, or murmuring over tea and pickled daikon. A low hum of conversation drifts over tatami mats, interrupted only by the clink of cups and the occasional belly laugh from a man seated too close to the sake shelf. As I kneel to inspect the beam, I hear a voice behind me rise, measured but firm. That's not the price we agreed on. It's a samurai, his short blade sheathed at his hip, dressed not in elaborate armor, but in everyday indigo hakama. He's standing over a merchant, young maybe 30, with a finely woven haori and a lacquered box in his lap. They're discussing a trade, perhaps a delivery. The merchant bows repeatedly, apologizing, explaining that costs have changed, that the market was disrupted by a flood in Shinagawa. The samurai's tone sharpens, not loud, but dangerous in its restraint. It's a moment that freezes the room. In Edo, status means everything, but so does face. Merchants, though wealthier in coin, are considered below warriors. To push back too hard would be disrespectful. To submit too easily would be cowardice. The merchant bows again, deeper this time. "Please accept a second box in addition as a gift." The samurai says nothing, lets the silence linger, then finally nods. "You understand the correct way," he mutters and walks off. The room exhales. It's not the first time I've seen something like this, but every time it reminds me of the invisible threads that hold Edo together, threads that can snap if pulled too tight. I return to my task, measuring the beam, listening for hollow spots. I fetch a plank from outside and begin the work driving wedges into place with gentle taps, careful not to disturb the flow of the tea house. There's a certain satisfaction to it, fixing what's broken, reinforcing what's weak. It's honest work, quiet work. And in a city as loud as Edo can be, silence is a form of peace. As I finish, Hirota returns with a tray tea and a small bowl of roasted chestnuts. "For your trouble," he says gruffly. I bow low in thanks. The tea is hot, strong with a bitter edge that softens after the second sip. I sit for a moment longer, letting the warmth spread through my chest, watching the sun paint long slats of light across the tatami. The samurai is gone now. The merchant has resumed eating. A man in the corner plays with a spinning top, flicking it across the floor with practiced grace. The tension has dissolved, but the memory remains a reminder that in Edo, every step, every word, every bow must be weighed. I gather my tools and leave with a full belly and a steady mind. The street feels different now, quieter, as if the city itself is preparing to fold inward. Lanterns are beginning to flicker to life. Vendors call out their last offers. The smell of grilled squid drifts on the air. Somewhere in the distance, a koto plays. I have one more stop before home. A friend, a fellow carpenter named Genji, asked for help with his roof. His wife says it leaks when it rains, dripping directly into their sleeping mat. I don't owe him anything. But in Edo, help offered is help remembered. And someday, when my own roof cracks or a client cheats me, Genji might be the one to stand beside me. We don't speak of favors like debts. We just show up. I make my way toward his house as the sky begins to blush with twilight, the city changing color before my eyes. Edo breathes differently now. The rhythm slows. The edges soften. And in this final stretch of sunlight, the stories of the day settle into the streets, waiting for the night to stir them again. By the time I reach Genji's house, the air has cooled the sun, dipping low behind the rooftops of Edo. The blue of the sky deepens into a rich indigo, echoing the dyed cloths hanging outside homes to dry. Lanterns flicker on one by one, like fireflies tethered to bamboo poles. The city is transforming before my eyes, less a marketplace now, more a quiet maze of stories winding behind half-shuttered doors. Genji lives on the eastern edge of the district in a small home, wedged between a sake shop and a home for 3 unmarried sisters, known for their gossip and mochi cakes. His place is humble wooden walls with peeling paint, a crooked fence that's been temporarily broken since last autumn. But it's warm. There's always laughter here, always a bowl of something cooking, always a child darting around the yard. Tonight, it's no different. As I walk up, Genji is already on the roof, waving a hand. "You took your time," he calls down. The tea's gone cold, but the leak hasn't fixed itself. I drop my tools with a grunt. If your roof were half as loud as your mouth, it'd be famous by now. His laughter echoes across the street. We work side by side as twilight folds into night. The roof is rough, sagging at the joints. Genji tells me it started leaking 2 weeks ago during the last heavy rain. His daughter got soaked mid-dream, thought a ghost was weeping on her forehead. We chuckle, but the damage is real. Rot has crept into the beam, and some tiles have loosened like baby teeth ready to fall out. We replace what we can with scraps he's saved, and patch the rest with a layer of straw and waxed paper. It won't last forever, but it'll hold for now. As we work, he speaks in a lower voice. "You hear what happened near the harbor?" I glance up. "Which harbor?" "There's always something." He wipes sweat from his brow with a sleeve. "A western ship. Big one. Docked longer than usual. They say the men on board didn't bow. Not once." I grunt, not sure what to say. Foreigners have been trickling into Japan ever since Commodore Perry forced the black ships into our waters. Since then, strange faces have appeared in the distance, men with blue eyes, odd hats, and papers full of maps. I've never spoken to one, but I've seen them from afar. tall, pale, like ghosts from a different dream. Genji shakes his head. They say we'll have to trade with them soon. Open more ports. Let their goods into our markets. Even their guns. Maybe I say. But what do you and I have that they want? He shrugs. Wood, rice, silk, and peace, maybe. The kind of order they can't understand. I don't respond. The hammer in my hand is steady, but my thoughts are not. I wonder what it would mean for a carpenter like me if the world begins to change. If the rules I was born under begin to crack like the very beams we patch, will the streets stay the same? Will the samurai still walk like shadows? Or will they vanish like fog before a foreign sun? Below us, Genji's daughter runs into the yard, waving a paper lantern. Papa Mama says dinner's ready. He waves back. We'll be down soon. She pauses, squints up at me. Uncle, are you staying? I smile. Only if your soup is better than your father's jokes. She giggles and runs inside. We finish the patching just as the moon rises nearly full, soft and round. The night has cooled, and the scent of stew drifts upward with the wind. We sit for a moment, longer legs dangling from the roof, watching the lights of Edo shimmer below us. Sometimes Genji says, I think about leaving the city. Maybe moving to the mountains. Start fresh. I nod. I think about it too. But the city, it's in us now. He looks at me. Maybe. Or maybe we're just too used to noise. We descend slowly, carefully. My knees aren't what they used to be. Inside, his wife greets us with bowls of hot stew and freshly steamed rice. We eat sitting cross-legged around a small hearth steam rising into the dark beams above us. The children chatter between bites. His wife scolds Genji for missing a broken shutter in the front room. He deflects with a joke. She rolls her eyes. We laugh. In this moment, everything feels still. Like time has paused its march just long enough for us to feel something close to safe. But outside, the world stirs. Beyond Edo's lanterns and patched roofs, ships rise like steel mountains on foreign tides. Whispers grow in markets and tea houses. Change is coming, not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but soon. And when it comes, I don't know if there will still be room for men like me. Men who patch broken things, who live by the grain of wood and the rhythm of the city's breath. For now, though, there is rice in my bowl and warmth in the room. For now, I belong. I leave Genji's home just as the city fully slips into night. The streets of Edo glow with a soft orange hue. Paper lanterns swinging gently in the warm evening breeze, hanging from doorways. Shop signs and long bamboo poles. The oil inside them burns low, but steady, casting shadows that dance like spirits against earthen walls. The smell of grilled eel and burning charcoal fills the air, layered with hints of sake incense and the faint bitterness of worn sandals dragging over stone. This is Edo after dark, neither asleep nor fully awake. A city that hums beneath the surface. It is quieter, yes, but not dead. It lives differently. The merchants retreat into back rooms to count coins. Poets begin to write. Lovers slip through alleys. Ronin walk, slower eyes sharper. And for commoners like me, this is the hour of reflection when the weight of the day presses deeper into the muscles, but the heart drifts higher, freer. As I walk along the main road, I pass a noodle vendor ladling broth into a bowl for a courier. The steam curls around their faces like ghosts. Two geisha walk slowly across the street, their kimonos whispering silk secrets with each step. Their hair is perfectly arranged, their movements precise and trained like living artwork. Men pause to watch, never speaking, just absorbing the beauty and the distance. Further along, I pass a temple gate. The priests are gone for the night, but a single candle flickers behind the altar. A young woman kneels in silence, her hands clasped, eyes closed tight. She's praying for something, maybe health, maybe love, maybe the money to pay next month's rent. I bow once and keep walking. Some prayers aren't meant to be overheard. The streets narrow as I turn toward home into the blocks where roofs lean toward each other, and the scent of home-cooked rice leaks through cracks in the shutters. Cats slink across doorsteps. A drunk man sings softly to himself. Bottle swinging in one hand, sandals clapping out of rhythm. His song is old, older than the city even. Something about cherry blossoms and a girl who never came back. I pass an old man tending a charcoal brazier just outside his shop. He's roasting chestnuts and humming an off-key tune. Our eyes meet. He nods. I nod back. No words, just the language of the night. Everything in Edo at this hour feels closer to the bone, like the masks drop with the sun. No more posturing, no more bows of duty, just people. Hungry, tired, dreaming, surviving. The city is still a maze of rules and rituals, but at night it feels more like a village wound tightly by proximity, not politics. When I reach the street where I live, the stars are faint above, washed out by the haze of lantern smoke and the sheer closeness of the rooftops. But they're there behind it all. I stop at the well in the center of the courtyard and draw water with a creaky rope. The bucket groans, the water sloshes. I rinse my face, the cold cutting through the heat of the day. My house is small, a single room with sliding paper doors and a patchy roof I haven't had time to fix. But it's mine. I step inside, light a candle, and sit down with a slow exhale. The floor creaks under my weight. The silence wraps around me like a thin blanket, not heavy, but full. Full of everything I've done, seen, touched. The wood dust still clings to my fingernails. My legs ache. My stomach is still warm from Genji's wife's stew. There's no one here to greet me. I live alone. That used to ache more than it does now. These days, I find a certain stillness in solitude. In knowing that every nail I drive, every plank I fit, every coin I earn is mine alone. And yet I am never truly alone. Not in Edo. This city breathes with me. It works with me. It breaks with me. Before I lie down to sleep, I unroll a thin mat, set a small folded cloth under my head, and glance toward the ceiling. The roof still holds. For now. The walls are thin, and I can hear the soft muttering of my neighbor's radio, a baby crying, 2 houses over, someone coughing deep into the night. Each sound is a thread, and together they form the quiet quilt of Edo's nighttime soul. Tomorrow I'll wake before sunrise. There will be new repairs. A tea shop might have a broken beam. A merchant's warehouse may need reinforcement. Maybe I'll run into Genji again. Maybe I won't. But this city will still be here, buzzing, humming, breathing with me, and through me. Edo never truly sleeps. It only waits. The first sounds that greet me are not the crow of a rooster or the clang of a temple bell, but the creak of the wood beneath my own body. I lie still for a moment, staring up at the ceiling beams I installed myself, rough-hewn but strong. The candle I forgot to blow out burned to a stub in the night. Its faint scent still lingers in the air, a quiet reminder that once again I made it through the darkness. Outside, Edo is already stirring. The streets are not yet crowded, but the sounds are unmistakable. The rustling of straw mats being beaten clean, the distant splash of river water drawn for washing. The soft thud of sandals slapping the earth as early risers move toward their labor. There's something different about the city at dawn. It's stripped bare, no pretenses, no courtesies, just motion and breath. Edo waking is like watching a giant stretch before standing. I rise slowly, bones protesting, but mind already counting the tasks ahead. My hands move, with practiced rhythm, fold the bedding sweep. The floor rinse my face with cold water from the clay basin. There is no mirror, but I know the lines that now mark my face better than any ink drawing. I know the calluses on my palms the way they curve like old stone. I know the way my back tightens in the cold and eases only after the second hour of work. My first bite of the day is simple leftover rice, now cold, but comforting, and pickled daikon that bites back just enough to wake the tongue. I chew slowly, savoring not the taste, but the act, the reminder that I have something to eat, that I earned it with wood and sweat. Before leaving the house, I bow lightly at my small kamedana shrine, just a shelf really with a slip of paper from the local temple and a few offerings from weeks past. I whisper no prayers. The gods already know what I want. I thank them not for favor, but for the strength to keep going. That is enough. Outside, the light is low and golden, casting long shadows across the narrow path. Mist clings to the rooftops like forgotten dreams, and a few neighbors pass by nodding or offering quiet greetings. One woman carries laundry. Another boy chases a rooster through a puddle. Life renews itself in these small, silent ways. I make my way back through the lanes I walked yesterday, only now they feel different. Familiar, yes, but somehow changed. A paper banner has been replaced. A new stack of crates waits outside a merchant's stall. A small patch of street has been swept clean of the ash that gathered after last night's cooking fires. These tiny shifts tell me what the city never says. Out loud, nothing in Edo stays still for long, not even us. Today's work will take me to the far side of town. A shopkeeper near the canal needs help reinforcing his storage shed. I've been there before. The wood is rotting from beneath, eaten away by damp air and poor design. It will be a long job, but not difficult. The kind of work that lets the mind wander while the body moves. I like those days best when I can lose myself in the grain of the wood, the ring of the hammer, the smell of fresh-cut timber. As I walk, I think of how many steps I've taken in this city, how many corners I've turned, how many roofs I've patched, how many people I've passed without speaking, but never truly ignoring. Edo is not a city of strangers, not really. We're all tied together by rice water and time, bound by seasons, festivals, taxes, and tales. Our faces may change, but our footsteps echo the same stories. I think of the samurai from the tea house, the geisha crossing the street, Genji's roof and his daughter's laughter, the shrine where the girl prayed in silence. I think of how all these fragments add up to something bigger than me, something too wide to hold and too delicate to name. I am a single thread in Edo's endless tapestry. But without threads like mine, there'd be no cloth at all. When I reach the canal, the sun is higher, and the water reflects the sky like a mirror. A boatman calls out to no one in particular. The smell of soy and fish wafts from the docks. I pause for just a moment, watching the ripples spread across the surface, thinking about how much this city has seen. Earthquakes, fires, foreign ships, revolts, and still it stands. I shoulder my tools and step onto the planks of the worksite, greeted by the shopkeeper with a grateful smile. His hands are stained with ink. His voice is already hoarse. But he bows deeply, and I bow back. Without a word, I begin. The wood is soft and damp, just like I remembered. The nails pull away too easily. I'll have to cut new supports and brace them from within. It's tedious work, but honest. And as I begin the first cuts, I feel the rhythm return, the song of labor, the hum of Edo in motion. Another day has begun. Another story has entered the folds. And I, just a carpenter, just a man among thousands, have once again become part of it. Edo lives because we live. And for now, that is more than enough.